All right, you're looking live at the president. He is speaking in Boulder City, Nevada. The president is kicking off his energy policy tour over at Copper Mountain Solar One, but not without a little bit of controversy. You see, this plant received roughly $50 million in tax credits, and it currently employs all of 10 people full-time. Republican Congressman Darrell Issa, doing the math, doesn't like the final figures. But Congressman, in the course of those remarks, the president more or less saying, it's time to, continue doubling down on solar. It's very, very promising. Less so oil. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the president wants to have it both ways. He comes to us in the State of the Union, takes credit for fracking something that was researched and finished long before he finished high school. And in fact, then he comes in and wants to take credit for failed programs. Yesterday we had Secretary Chu before our committee, and we had to point out and push for him to officially defund a $1.4 billion program that had failed to meet its stimulus deadline, partially because they were using Solyndra and First Solar assets, if you will, that were no longer available. More importantly, program after program we showed were not innovative, didn't meet the laws passed by an all-Democratic House and Senate, and yet the secretary gave himself an A on the handling of the program.
I saw that.
And then we asked him about gasoline prices that went from $1.80 to $3.80 under his watch. He gave himself an A.
But also now you've just heard from there was a Democratic congressman earlier, and the White House is obviously supporting this effort to rein in speculators. That they're a big reason why gas prices have climbed to the degree they have. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the problem the president has is that everything he has been on subjects other than oil. The only thing he's done on oil is take credit for what has been done on private lands in spite of his reducing oil exploration on public lands. So he doesn't have the credibility to say, I've done everything I can and the prices have still risen. Just the opposite. He's done everything he could to show that America wouldn't make the investments in oil self-sufficiency, and then he wants to say, but it's not my fault.
But he also does, I'm getting a sense, Congressman, you're closer to this than I am, that he just doesn't like the oil industry. In this speech we're monitoring right now, he's really ripping them a new one, their tax subsidies, their benefits, whatever. And that might be fair game. A lot of these guys are making money hand over fist. But when he's talking about he's been friendly to oil and open up more drilling, and then with the other hand he's wrapping them a new one saying that they're more or less greedy, selfish, with a backstop of solar panels behind him. I'm beginning to think he has favorites in this energy race.
Well, there's no question he has favorites. Remember, cap and trade was something he tried to push through that would have necessarily added a great deal of money, probably over $1 a gallon, to the cost at the pump today. It would have added cost to natural gas. It would have added huge cost to home heating and electricity if it was from coal. And as you know, 51% of our electricity comes from coal. This president hates carbon. Now, Al Gore hates carbon. I'm sure that many people agree that global warming is caused by CO2. But the fact is, he's got to live with what he views as his policies. His policy is anti-carbon, pro-photovoltaic and other renewable, and that's fine, except the fact is that the American public gets its energy and will for the foreseeable future predominantly from fossil fuels, and he's not doing anything to make sure we have an ample supply to keep the price down. We had Secretary Chu, and he admitted that. As a matter of fact, when the Democrats talked about the amount of subsidy.
Do you think Chu should go, by the way? I couldn't quite get from the hearing whether you thought he should go.
I think Secretary Chu desperately needs an administrator beneath him that can make the trains run on time, that can make sure that programs are honestly administered. I think he's a brilliant scientist. I called him probably the smartest man ever to be the Secretary of Energy. The fact is,
and that proves that you don't need to be an Einstein to run a cabinet agency.
Well, exactly. Thomas Jefferson was brilliant, but he died bankrupt. The fact is, the administration is doing a bad job of administering, in spite of the fact that this is a brilliant scientist. I like Stephen Chu personally, but the job that's been done is not an A by any fair grading standard.
Okay, maybe an incomplete. We'll see. Congressman, thank you. Very good having you.
Thank you, Neil.
Well, the government says they're